just relate to Sean because I talked to him about it. I don't feel any regrets from when I talk to her. I don't hear regrets. But I think, and you can share it with this, Sean, I feel like when you really go through the motions and you really give it a college try and you really do everything you can do, and when you hit that brick wall that is so clear to you and everyone else, people know it. People gonna respect it, and people gotta respect it. Because at the end of the day, that's just what it is. But if you don't really try to ride out the waves and figure things out and give it your best try, you're gonna have regrets. And I think that's it's just my opinion. I wonder if he's gonna have that, because it takes time to figure out life with people, especially when you hop into a marriage in a whirlwind romance. So, and we live in a popcorn society right now. Everything is quick, fast. Everyone's on a podcast sharing their opinions. You get an instant picture, instant back. I think we're getting worse and worse at figuring out like how to put things out there and work for things and work through things. And the more society speeds stuff up, the less people want to work through stuff. The less they want to talk things out. The more they're like, I'm going to walk away. I'm done with it. And that's just not going to lead to any successful relationship. And I think anyone who's been married a long time will tell you, people who've been married 20, 30 years, they're going to tell you about the waves of their relationship. And maybe people aren't built for them waves, right? And if you know, you're like, look, I ain't built for these waves. One bump, I'm out. Well, if you know you won't bump you out, that's cool. But don't get in front of that lady. Don't get in front of that man. You know what I mean? Like if you know you two bumps in a half a bump, I don't know. You may want that. What's it? The living boyfriend or girlfriend where you can. Ain't nothing wrong with. I mean, well, God said that's wrong, but like, let's take that out of it. You know, so if he or she get on your nerves, you tell them to go back to their house. That's what I would suggest.
One of the things that kind of, and I learned this in therapy and reading several books about marriages and relationships. It is, what is the story that you tell yourself and you tell the world? And if we look at the story that both Jeezy and Jeanni Mai told the world about their marriage, I think there's some issue with that foundationally, right? Because it was almost, when Jeanni Mai would talk about it, and I'm just going to say, by him not saying anything, that means that he sanctioned it, right? Because they didn't get to an agreement that this is what we're not going to say. But it's almost like she leveraged her first marriage to say like she upgraded to now Jeezy, and then she kind of diminished her ex-husband, and then uplifted and pedestalized Jeezy. So that story is already not a good story for a marriage, which, just as you said, and we all know, right? Marriage is full of great things, but there's ups and downs and hills and valleys. So your story should never have a thread in it where it begins where you are putting somebody else down, because that's ultimately going to be the downfall in your own story. So I think that what Jeanni did, and I'm going to say Jeanni, but then it's them collectively, is talk too much about all the good things too soon in their marriage, right? Oh, I'm submitting now. I'm having a baby now, but I didn't want to have a baby then with this guy. Versus, hey, listen, we're in this marriage. Our marriage story needs to be about Jeezy and I, what we're learning, the foundation that we have, and not about looking back to whatever situation she stepped out of and kind of minimizing that guy. Right. And then he had his own things to say about Jeanni. So they didn't spend enough time investing in each other, enough time uplifting each other, working on their foundations and how they're going to weather the storm and build their marriage story. And too much time about other things, and then too much time talking loudly about what you thought you fixed or you figured out the answers to when you hadn't. And I think God, in a lot of ways, also humbles us when we step out too proudly to say, oh, we got it figured out. Yeah, no, we don't. We don't have it figured out, and life has a way of humbling us. And God actually has a way of humbling us in so many ways with the decisions, because now you've got to live out the same way you were boasting. You've got to live this now, end of your marriage out very publicly, which I'm sure is not something that she wanted. And I think she should have thought about that, because now she's in the same position that her ex-husband was in. Now, what's the irony of that? Right? Because everything that we know about her ex-husband, he wanted a marriage and a life with her, and she wanted out from him. So I think, hey, there's a lot of lessons in this that we can take away and just to be cautious about. But I think that story, the story that we tell ourselves about ourselves, I think that's the biggest thing that we really, that's what we're all agreeing about here, is we want to hear what Jeezy is telling himself about himself and what led him down the path to marry her and then ultimately get to a point where he felt like he couldn't be in that marriage. That story is much more relatable than these little glossy things or a little tidbit here or there. Like, what did you learn about yourself? How did you realize that this was a good decision to make, to be together, and now a good decision to not be together?
And I will add that for me, I didn't learn until I had to co-parent. So I don't know how it's going to look for them in the co-parenting space, but the things that I didn't learn in the marriage, I was forced to learn in the co-parenting side of it, right? Like, the part that I knew I carried in the marriage, I had more passion to actually fix those things because I wanted my kids to have a healthy life, right? So now, whatever those issues were, you still got to deal with this lady, right? Like, you still have to face this. I don't know how, this is the ex-wife versus, people who you weren't married to, but it wasn't like it was that long. So I still don't know what that's going to look like and how invested he'll be. Hopefully he doesn't just abandon the situation. But I do think that sometimes those lessons come, it's like those people get married and then you write a book about marriage. Like, y'all only been married for this long and you already on TV telling people advice about how to have a successful relationship. I didn't even start giving co-parenting advice to people until way later, when I felt like I was doing it right, like years and years, probably 5-6 years into co-parenting before I would even really give advice. I was like, I don't know if it's going to work. Like, I'm trying this and I'm doing it, but I don't know if it's going to work. So I feel like, kind of back to what you were saying, Sean, like, you spoke too soon, and I'm big on, like, I'm not trying to get humbled. I'm trying to, like, keep my stuff like this and protect it. But I think that, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out, because I feel like Jeanni is way more likely to speak on it, than he will, because she don't got no shame in her game about putting it out there. So that'll be interesting to see if she actually shares her side of all of this.
Yeah, man. I mean, listen, I think Jeezy, Jeanni, and I wanted to even say earlier on, the trauma that Jeezy's gone through, if he hasn't gone for any therapy, he's a danger to himself.